grief, and exile. We speak of a people torn from their ancestral lands, scattered to the winds of an indifferent world. These are the truths that must never be forgotten. Yet too often, in our mourning, we allow ourselves to forget another truth, one equally sacred, equally essential to who we are, the Armenians who fought back. Those who did not simply endure, but resisted. Those who, even as the world sought to erase them, took up arms and held their ground, and in doing so, laid the very foundation upon which the first Armenian Republic would be built. A people capable of statehood, of sovereignty, of standing upright before a world. To remember only the suffering is to tell only half of that story. Tonight, let us tell the whole story. In life, especially in politics, every game has its rules. You either participate in the game and respect the rules, or you disregard those rules and lose the game. In the people's life, the art of discipline, of tenacity, required to abide by those rules, has tremendous value. When you state in front of the whole world that you are Armenian and that you are going to live as an Armenian, the rules of the game dictate that you claim responsibility over all sacrifices that represent the prerequisites for your survival and continuity. You either enter the game and in doing so respect the rules, or lose everything. In this game, there is no rest. There is no armistice after claiming ownership of one's national identity. The fight is constant. The struggle is perpetual. Shame on all those that after the war is over, when an accord has been signed, turns to peace as the sole guiding compass. Shame on those who think that the struggle is over with the stroke of a pen. Those who know the rule of the game acknowledge that every accord signed in the name of peace represents nothing other than the preparation for another war. There are no peace-loving people on this earth, for they are all annihilated. Those that fear sacrifice, the peoples that are petrified at the sight of blood, have no place in history. In the end, their place is at the cemeteries. But in order to live, our livelihood is going to feed off of our sacrifices and the blood, sweat, and tears of our martyrs. Those that don't know the art of sacrifice cannot acquire the privilege of securing the livelihood of its future generation. Blood, sweat, and tears are necessary for the assurance of continuity of the people. And during the Middle Ages, us Armenians thought that being Christian Armenians was enough to live gracefully and peacefully on our indigenous lands. And so, we even had Catholicicide that preached to their flocks to not fight, to live in peace. That a wise slave, the iron rule of the Ottoman Empire, is not that bad. And we've had other Armenian intellectuals, whether in the clerical ranks or not, that said that if you want everyone to be indulgent of us as Armenians, then you have to be at the ground level. They ordered everyone to slither and crawl so that everyone else would be able to stomp on us. We truly believe that we as Armenians have the favor of God and will be worthy of eternal glory. He who suffers on this earth will attain great glory in the afterlife, they prophesied. But we do not have means to ascertain that. But what we can know for certain is that the prosecution and the persecution against us has not only doubled, not only quintupled, but has intensified thousandfold. Despite the level of submission to the Ottoman Empire regime reaching unfathomable levels, our population was not only halved, but quartered. Our most prominent cities were occupied and torn apart. The dignity of the Armenian people was desecrated, despite having perfected the art of slithering and crawling. We were crawling on the ground as they were stomping on us mercilessly. And when the stomping amounted to no avail, and they realized that we not only survived and did not perish, but saw something that horrified them, the statement that we are Armenian and we are going to live as Armenians. They saw that as a declaration of war, and they saw right. It was only us that within our statement merely saw freedom. It was only us that were under the impression that whatever we surrender in this world, we would recuperate in the next. But what we really ended up happening is that we lost an entire statehood and became laughingstock of the entire world. Because we had declared our will to be resilient by saying we are Armenians, but surrendered all arms to protect them. We didn't respect the rules of the game, and for that, we paid enormously. And we will still pay enormously, because to this day, we run away from altercations and struggle. Today, we still forfeit in front of our enemies. Why do we leave our homeland? Why do we abandon our cultural centers and our albums? Why do we disperse and dissolve from the collective lives at the slightest sign of danger? Why do we turn our backs from our responsibility to make sacrifices when that's the rule of the game? The iron rule of the game continues to head us in the head. And we don't seem to understand. Where are we running? What is the final destination to where we're running? Let's speak bluntly. Where we see danger, we don't want to see Armenians. There's danger there. Run, escape. There's persecution there. Run, escape. There's sacrifice there. Run, escape. But run to where? If it isn't just symbolism, mannerism, or ceremony that we say so brazenly that we are Armenian, then there needs to be a rebirth of the revolutionary Armenian. I say the revolutionary Armenian, not the Armenian Revolution. The kind of Armenian that faces the enemies and says, stop here. Beyond this point, you have no entry. And if there is entry, it is only on Makedad, the revolutionary Armenian. When we start to see within each and every single one of us the revolutionary Armenian, it is only then that we would truly understand the rules of the game and finally be at the table. It is only then that we reclaim our dignity. We become strong again, not only start defending our rights, but demanding respect. Nationally, collectively, and individually. Otherwise, we don't have the right to demand self-respect. We don't have the right to demand freedom from anyone else. We can demand respect only when, as a people, we start respecting ourselves, and as a nation, we start fighting for our freedom. If we want to demand respect as a nation, then we should already have the willingness to dedicate endless sacrifices for that. We saw that even within our own lands, we had become small islands, Sunik, Sassoon, Zeytoun. And when we looked at our surrounding, there were no Armenians. The enemy had forcibly displaced us. I don't want to dwell on the past too much. Sassoon, Zeytoun, Mousa Ler, are the glories of our past. Now every community is a Sassoon of its own. From the northern Americas to Barsistan is either a Sassoon or there are no Armenians living there. We either respect the rules of the game and understand that we don't have friends, just like any other nation, other than our own power. We need to find our allies at the expense of seeing them as enemies of the future, and identify our enemies knowing that they might be allies in the future. And continue that struggle. The struggle is not exclusively with guns. We are to offer sacrifices with great pride. We will spill blood, sweat, and tears with great tenacity. In the circus of politics, it is disillusionary to think that just because you are civilized, you deserve respect. You are civilized for your benefit before all. If you are valuable, for your benefit before all. If you are rich in morality, it is for your benefit before all. And if those qualities prove beneficial to others, praise be yours, but not with the flawed mentality that you are entitled to salvation through their sacrifices. Morphing this ideology into national philosophy is laughable. If we don't respect the rules of the game, we will always be defeated and crawl on the ground so that others may stomp on us. And if you don't mind crawling, then there is no need to announce that you are Armenian. There are no crawling nations. Those that crawl on the ground are condemned to be buried under it. If we want to extract one lesson, not only from Sassoon, but every heroic battle of the Armenian history, then it would be this. Why were the Armenians of Sassoon martyred? Why did they give their lives? Was it solely for the land, the rock, the soil? In Zeytoun, when people were viciously fighting the Turkish forces, why were they defending? What was it that they were defending? The Rocky Mountains of Zeytoun? Of course not. They were knowingly or unknowingly defending the supreme, the soon-to-be nation, and the dignity of that nation, the destiny of that nation, the future of that nation, and its survival. Let no one say we should fight only where there are many Armenians. We should fight where we are better organized than Armenians. We are Armenians everywhere. We are organized everywhere. We are present everywhere. And we are Armenian every single place. So no matter how scattered we become, no matter how distant we get from one another, no matter which corner of the world we end up in, we are going to feel the violence done towards our nation, and we are going to act in retaliation. That is how we are going to live. That is how we are going to prosper. That is how we are going to emerge victorious. And that will does not solidify within us, then we will die. And one last ideal that we must confront, one that has long festered within our own community, and that is external forces are only too eager to exploit. It is the notion that the Armenian genocide, with all its traumatic effects, belongs solely to the traditional diaspora. That it was only those who fled to Beirut, to Paris, to Buenos Aires who truly suffered and endured. This couldn't be further away from the truth. The Armenians of Yerevan, of Nerli, of Artsakh, they did not step aside from the catastrophe. They stood within it. They received at their doorstep their fellow compatriots. They sheltered the exiles. They buried the refugees who arrived at their doorstep. And they fought at Sartarabad, Pashabad, Baratisa. It was the Armenians of Eastern Armenia who halted the advancing Turkish forces and prevented the total annihilation of our people. Without those battles, there would be no survivors to mourn. There would be no diaspora to gather, no republic to speak of. To pit diaspora against homeland Armenian, to declare one the sole inheritor of genocide memory and the other a stranger to it, that does not make sense. It is a weapon wielded against us. Our enemies know that a divided Armenian people is a defeated Armenian people, so let us not grant them that victory. The sacred thread that tethers the diaspora to the homeland and the homeland to the diaspora cannot be severed, no matter how hard they try it from Ankara, Baku, Yerevan, Washington, or anywhere else in the world. That sacred thread is in every Armenian that knows the rules of the game and live by it. Thank you.